If you're new around here, please hit the subscribe button below and don't forget to like the video. It helps the channel to grow. More importantly, please enjoy. Thank you. Hi guys, welcome to Irish Footy Vlogs. Today we're going to look back at my personal choices for top 5 managers of the previous decade. So from 2010 to 2019. So let's get straight into it. So number 5, I've gone for Ian Barraclough, who was manager of Sligo. He won their first league title in 35 years in 2012. You know, they beat St Patrick's Leg 3-2 at home to seal a great day for Sligo Rovers. The following year, he won an FAI Cup 2013 by beating Drogheda United 3-2 in the final, another epic game. And he also won the Setanta Cup in 2014, where Sligo beat Dundalk 1-0. He left in 2014 after that, where they were 17 points behind Dundalk and I think 5th in the league at that point. So, yeah, I mean, it was, 4 years at the club, roughly 2, actually it was less, wasn't it? It was less than 4 years at the club. I think it might be 3 years at the club. And he left a bit of a legacy there. And I think he deserves to be 5th in this particular list without a shadow of a doubt. Number 4, I've gone with Liam Buckley. Liam Buckley was manager of St Patrick's Athletic from the years 2013 to 2018. He resigned in 2018 after they lost 3-1 to Bohemians. He's now manager of Sligo Rovers since 2019 and will take them into the next decade. But his legacy at Pats, it was obviously his second spell at the club. But we're just focusing obviously on the decade, and he won the title with Pats in 2013. Kind of got Pats back in contention though the year before. He finished 3rd, he finished 6 points off the title winners, Sligo Rovers. You know, he got to an FAI Cup final that year as well, and they also came through 2 rounds in the Europa League before getting beaten by German side Hanover. So the foundations were there, and he had this reputation of generally 4-3-3 he played, and good football. Pats with good football, a lot of good footballers in the team, guys who could pass the ball and that, you know. But title win 2013, as I said. But probably the biggest day for Pats was probably the 2014 FAI Cup win against Derry City, where they won 2-0, because Pats hadn't won that competition since 1960-61 season. And Liam Buckley is the man that obviously brought them, that ended that drought. So, he also won 2 League Cups for the club afterwards in 2015, 2016. So it was a productive time for Buckley at Pats. Probably went stale over the last 2 years, but he did enough across the decade anyway to make my list and to make it in at number 4. So number 3, I decided to go with John Caulfield. I was debating whether to go with him or the guy picked at number 2 for number 3. But I went for John Caulfield in the end at number 3. Look, he had a great decade with Cork City. Won 1 league title in 2017. They finished 4 times runners-up. You can look at that 2 ways, but in fairness, they came up against a great Dundalk side for most of that period. And any other era, they probably would have nicked anyway, another title, maybe 2 more as well. But still, to have them runners up 4 times in the decade and win the league title, that's, consistency, to be fair. He also won 2 FAI Cups in 2016, 2017 as well. So League Cup double in 2017. 3 Presidents Cups in 16, 17 and 18 as well. So definitely a good year for Cork. Great year for John Caulfield. A local guy as well. Cork's in his blood. Cork City, he had a lot of good players at the club and obviously gelled them all well together. Again, he lost his job, left the club, probably a mutual thing in 2019, halfway throughout the season, and it was, maybe things were going stale, Cork were losing players and that, but if you look at what he's achieved generally throughout the decade and what he came up against, John Caulfield definitely has to be in this list. In number 2, I went for Michael O'Neill, Shamrock Rovers. It's an interesting one because he was 3 seasons at Shamrock Rovers, but only 2 in this decade. However, he achieved an awful lot in the short time was at the club. He won the league title in 2010 and 2011 with Shamrock Rovers, a club that struggled for most of the 90s and 2000s, to be fair. It was their first title win, the 2010 win. It was their first win since 1994. In general, up to that point, they had played second fiddle to Pats, Bowes, and Shelbourne actually. In that, to be behind all those Dublin clubs would have been disappointing for them. So Michael O'Neill brought a bit of an air of professionalism into Rovers and organisation, and good players and good management to the club. But the reason why I kind of put him in number 2 just out of Caulfield was mainly because obviously the 2 titles and that, but the fact that they qualified for the Europa League. I think that was 2011. They qualified for Europa League, so that was a huge achievement. They were the first team to do it, first manager to do it as well. They beat Partizan Belgrade to get there, so that's no mean feat. They had some good days as well. They went to White Hart Lane and went 1-up in the second half at White Hart Lane against Spurs before eventually falling 3-1. But when Michael O'Neill left the club to take on the Northern Irish job, Shamrock Rovers did take a hit for a couple of years, and it's only now that they're starting to maybe come up close to that level. But the impact he made when he came in was huge for Shamrock Rovers. They were going nowhere essentially before he came in, and it did take them a few years. They struggled for a few years when he left as well. So for that reason, I've stuck Michael O'Neill in at number 2. And number 1, I don't think too many people can disagree with the number 1 choice in Stephen Kenny. Fantastic job last decade with Dundalk, winning league titles in 2014, 15, 16 and 18. So, on a few occasions they were runners up as well. They won 2 FAI Cups in 2015 and 18 as well, 3 league cups. He won in that decade as well. One with Derry actually in 2011 as well. Just to throw that in there too. He won a President's Cup as well. He also won a First Division title with Derry City in 2011 as well. So, very successful decade for Kenny and particularly Dundalk. What more can you say? They were the second club as well to get through to after Shamrock Rovers had under Michael O'Neill to the Europa League group stage. They beat Bata Borisov to qualify for the third round of the Champions League phase, where they ultimately lost to Legia Warsaw, but they were guaranteed a place in the UEFA Cup, I was going to say, Europa League after that, which they done quite well. I mean, they weren't battered on any of the games or anything like that. Zenit and Petersburg were in the group. They drew away to AZ Alkmaar from Holland, and they beat Maccabi Haifa from Maccabi Tel Aviv actually from Israel. So what can you say about Kenny? I've listed out his achievements there and what he done for the club. He also took over the stage where Dundalk were also ran as well, and obviously they spent money, but you still need the right man in the job to carry that on. And ultimately his success got him the Republic of Ireland under 21 job and the senior job when he takes over from Mick McCarthy. So that's the top 5, guys. I don't know, do you agree with the top 5? Do you think anyone else should be in the top 5? Do you think the order is a little bit wrong? But leave down your comments, your personal top 5. Again, I'll go through the number 5, Ian Barclough, number 4, Liam Buckley, number 3, John Caulfield, number 2, Michael O'Neill, and number 1, Stephen Kenny. Next time for a few honourable mentions. This guy is the guy that was manager of Sligo before Barclough came in, Paul Cook. He laid the foundations, I suppose, for Sligo's success. If he'd stayed, would he have won a league title? We don't know. Maybe gone a bit stale for him, but Barclough got in ahead of him pretty much because he won the league title, which is the Holy Grail. But Cook, I suppose some of his foundation work was from 2007, but the silverware he won with Sligo was in 2010 onwards. He won a League Cup where they beat Monaghan. Sadly, Monaghan are gone, 1-0. And 2 FAI Cups in a row where they beat Rovers and Shelbourne, both in penalties as well. So that's a fair achievement, in 2010, 2011. So, Look, he's done great work. Another manager who deserves an honourable mention is Declan Devine at Derry City. I'm a huge fan of Declan Devine. Um, but the reason why he gets an honourable mention is the fact that he took over Derry City. He won the FAI Cup in 2012, and did a good job over the years there from 2012 and 2014. He was sacked in 2014 despite getting Derry City into Europe, and that was largely seen as a mistake by fans and probably the club as well. He came back to the club, of course, 2019. Derry City had struggled the year before badly. I think they finished 8th in the league, 7th or 8th for sure, and guided them to 4th last season. He has an eye for young players, and he seems to bring a group together and get the best out of them. So for that reason, Declan Devine is another manager who gets a good mention. Manager getting an honourable mention is Keith Long. He's been manager of Bohemians since 2014. A lot of people will be shouting at this and saying, well, what has he won? He hasn't won anything. But context is everything, and that's the case with him and the next manager we'll be talking about. You know, the fact that Bohs have had a budget generally lower than a lot of the clubs in the league, certainly they have punched above their weight. And I think Keith Long has improved Bohs the longer he's been there. He definitely has an eye for a player. He seems to have brought a kind of a siege mentality to Bohemians, I feel, that's worked in their favour. I think he has an eye for a player, but he brings a lot of good young players through, be it from the club or be it players that perhaps were over in England and struggled, and he's brought them back, like so Livingston and Mandrew, for example, in recent years. And he just seems to go from strength to strength. They finished 3rd last season when a lot of people had tipped them. Some people were tipping them for relegation. Now, I wouldn't personally go that far, but there were murmurs, you know what I mean? No one tipped them for 3rd. But, you know, it was a good decade in that way for Bohs. I suppose if you're a Bohemians fan, obviously you want to see silverware in that, but again, context is everything in these situations. And a lesser manager probably would have struggled with the resources that Bohemians had in the last number of years. Keith Long has definitely got the most resources. It'd be interesting to see if Bohs had a few more resources, what he could do with them. But they have a very, very good squad of young players, and he's managed them very well. And you can only see Bohemians getting better, especially with the young players coming through. So Keith Long definitely deserves an honourable mention. Now, the final manager given an honourable mention to is Ollie Horgan from Finn Harps. I think, again, similar to Bohs, context is everything. Finn Harps, in many ways, are probably a First Division club in many senses. There'll be clubs in the First Division that consider themselves bigger than Finn Harps, so you have to look at it that way. They have yo-yoed a little bit since Ollie Horgan did take over in 2013, but he's had them in the Premier Division quite a bit. Has always battled against the odds. Their league title is literally staying up in the Premier Division. They managed to do so last year. They won playoffs in 2015 and 18 to get up. In 2013, they even reached an FAI Cup semi-final, where they lost to the eventual winners, St. Pat's. And Ollie Horgan has been in charge for that length of time and will continue into the new decade. So, you know, he's constantly had to sell his better players and still keeps them at a decent level. Like, you know, they're not generally Premier Division, top of First Division level. So, and it's a difficult job because it's hard, let's be honest, it's hard to get players to move up to Donegal as well. So, Ollie Horgan definitely, he deserves an honourable mention. So that's about it, guys. That's the top 5 managers, my personal choices from the last decade and honourable mentions. And I'll see you again next time. Cheers. See you after. Good luck.